Guys, it's Nancy Horn, the Mama Maven. I wanted to tell you the story of what happened 2 months ago when my son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, my oldest child. Now, I've spoken about it on Facebook, I've mentioned it on the blog, The Mama Maven, I've talked about it on Instagram, The Mama Maven again, but I haven't told you guys on YouTube the whole story. I'm doing this again because I got pretty emotional during the Facebook Live, and I don't think that helps anybody. I think it doesn't help me to get all crying and upset. It helps me to talk to you and tell you honestly and calmly what had happened and how we wound up in the hospital. So it was the end of the summer. It was the weekend of the eclipse. So we'd been up at my mother-in-law's that week, and we'd come home that Thursday, and he was kind of tired. Didn't think anything of it. He fell asleep in the car. He was 11 at the time. Most 11-year-olds don't fall asleep in the car, but okay. That next night is that Friday night. We had gone to meet my sister-in-law. She's an Orthodox Jew, so we couldn't just go anywhere, and the only place open was an ice cream place. So we went to the ice cream place, and usually when we go somewhere like that, I end up encouraging my son to have something that's high fat and high calories because he's very skinny. Well, he ended up having something, a chocolate peanut butter shake, and he thoroughly enjoyed it. And then my other kids and I went out for Asian food, and it was delicious. We loved it, and my son said he wasn't that hungry, but he managed to have miso soup and samosas. Now, later that night, sometime in the morning, it could have been 2, 3 in the morning, he throws up. No big deal, kids throw up. And what he ate, I'm not surprised he threw up. So, I cleaned up everything, and, I usually watch my kids when they throw up to make sure they're okay the next day. He was fine, back to himself. So we went out and we had a interesting time. That's another story for another time, but he was okay. So over that weekend though, it was hot, and he kept drinking a lot of water, and he also was urinating a lot, which makes sense. But in the back of my head I was going, this is a little weird. What's going on? So, but I didn't think of anything. I didn't think it was anything. So that Monday we were running around for the eclipse, and I was very nervous about my kids looking into the sun, how everybody was. So after our plans changed, we ran home. Now, he didn't have a lot to eat that day. And you know what? We were running around, and I was trying to get work done and all this other stuff, so I kind of didn't make a meet, and we kind of just were easy. It was one of the last days of vacation. My husband was coming home from a trip. He went to Bulgaria for 2 weeks on an archaeological dig. Yep, that's what he does for his vacation. He was thrilled. He hadn't gotten to go in a long time since Ben was a baby. So also, Ben had come into our bed a lot that weekend. So he threw up Friday night, and then I think Saturday or Sunday night he kept coming into my bed. And I don't know if he was trying to tell me something or whatever. I mean, he used to come into our bed a lot when he was smaller, but as an 11-year-old, not so often. Again, I didn't think anything of it. So my husband comes home that 7 o'clock Monday night. We're thrilled to see him, we're having a great time. Ben really did need a dinner, and I didn't make him. And then later on, we found out that he snuck candy. Okay, he doesn't really sneak candy, he'll sneak other things, but I let it go. So then around 3:30 in the morning, or it could have been 2:30, he starts throwing up again. Now, he had thrown up Friday night. Now, this is Monday night. He's throwing up again. And luckily, my husband said, you know what, I have jet lag. I'm going to get up. I'll stay up with him, which was great. So, the next day, I had a lot of things to do, so I was kind of glad that my husband was staying up with him. Next morning, I think I went on the couch and hung out with Ben, I think it was 7:30 in the morning, and kind of went back to sleep myself, and he still wasn't feeling well. Now, I have ulcers, so there are times when I throw up uncontrollably. Anything he was drinking, he was throwing up. I thought it was something like gastro-related, and I figured, he'll be okay, I don't know why it came back, but maybe he's fighting something. And my 2 other kids were fine. And then around 9 o'clock hits, and I'm realizing that something's really wrong here because he's pale, he can't keep anything down. I started to get worried. And I started to realize that we needed to go see our pediatrician, and we needed to go now. So I called my doctor's office, and they were like, okay, come on in at 11. But when they say that, I always come in immediately and they see me. So I play the game and say, okay, I'll be there at 11, and I go right away anyway. But my little guy gave me a hard time getting dressed because that's his personality, and I had to put different shirts on him. I had to put 3 different shirts on him before I could get him to leave. Now Ben at this point is lying on the ground. He's too weak. And I started getting really upset. Like I was going to take a whole shower and do my hair, and I was like, quick rinse, got dressed. I gathered everything because I figured we'd be waiting for a while at the doctor's office, and then we'd be seen and we'd go home. Luckily, my daughter helped me with my son, my little guy, and she took his hand and got him out the door. So we're 2 blocks from the subway, and it's 2 quick subway stops on one train line, 1 subway stop on another train line. So I wasn't sure what to do. I didn't know if we should take an Uber. At this point, I am supporting Ben with my arms around him, and then I have a bag with a bucket in case he throws up. I really thought sincerely that it was gastro-related. So we get to the doctor's office, and the doctor hears us come in. He's a good guy, and he gave my son water. He came out, and my son gulped it down like he'd never drank in his life. And I figured, oh, he's just going to throw up again. But okay, if the doctor's giving him water, let's see that. So the doctor said, you know what, I want to test his urine. He's like, it's either gastrointestinal related or it's something else. And I was like, something else? What are you talking about? It's just gastro. And he's like, no, let's just find out. So took his blood sugar. My son was over 500 with the blood sugar. That's not good. I still kind of didn't get it at this point. He told me that we needed to go to the emergency room. Now, we've been to the emergency room lots of times, and we always end up with a huge ambulance bill because it's usually never really life-threatening, but we go. There are some times we've had doozies, but still, our insurance is high, and I was a little worried about the bill. I would have taken a taxi there and kind of eaten the cost that way. The doctor said, you need to go right now. He called an ambulance. He was going to send me to the local hospital, which, to be honest, I don't like. I had worked with the Our Baby Foundation a few years ago, and they had recommended always take your child to a pediatric ER if you can, because everything is more suited for kids, all the equipment and personality, they know how to treat children. But when this is happening and you're in a crisis mode, you don't think of that. Luckily, my sister-in-law did. I called her. She's a doctor. She was amazing. She basically convinced the doctor and the ambulance staff to take us to Cohen's Children's Hospital by Northwell Health. I'm really glad she did, because I wasn't really of the right mind to do that. So they give Ben IVs, and then they put us in the ambulance, and my little guy is 7. He thought being in the ambulance was the best thing in the world. My daughter was a little quieter. She's like her big brother's shadow, and she was upset. I was trying not to get upset, because if mommy gets upset, then kids get upset. Ben would get upset. He looked horrible. Now, I'm not sharing pictures of how he looked in the ambulance and how he looked when he was in Diabetic Ketoacidosis. It was horrible. So we get to the hospital, and you know, when you come with an ambulance, they see you right away. So the resident was, and the doctors, they told me that they see this 1 time a day. A kid comes in with DKA every single day. That's crazy. So I'm not going to cry, I promise. So anyway, the staff was fantastic. The nurses, the doctors. We were taken up to the ICU. Now, while this was all happening, I had called my mother and from the ambulance, and luckily I caught her before she had gone somewhere for the whole day, and she was able to meet me. She was there, she met me at the hospital, and she took my 2 younger kids out in the waiting room with her. I was able to reach my husband, and I wasn't sure where we were going. First I had told him one hospital, and then I told him where we were going, and he came and met us very quickly right after that. Time is a little fuzzy. My in-laws had been coming down from upstate because they were supposed to take Ben on vacation that day up to their house. They were going to go to Ithaca for the week. That was all canceled, but they're terrific. And then we made the decision later that they would take my 2 younger kids up to their house, which is 2 hours away. They also have an apartment here, just to let us concentrate on Ben. So that was a good thing. So my younger kids were handled. Ben was hooked up to IVs. He had one in one arm. And then we were sent up to the Pediatric ICU. Let me tell you, that's a scary place. First day in tonight wasn't easy. He was begging me for water. I couldn't give him anything. So I was allowed to give him ice chips, and that was it. And now I had gone home and gotten clothes, came back. My neighbor Valerie helped me pack because I was in just no shape. And she helped me pack my 2 younger kids too. And then I drove back to the hospital. My mother brought me food. And then at night I sent my husband home probably about 10 o'clock to sleep because one of us needed to sleep and it wasn't going to be me. I ended up falling asleep in the hospital for a little while. I slept more than Ben did. Poor kid was up. I let him watch television, I think, until about 3 a.m. He was in a hospital bed. What was I going to do? So the next morning, he was begging me for water. Finally, around 8:39, our nurse Kat, who came in, went on duty about 7, was able to unhook him from, I think, one of the IVs, I don't even know. And I was able to feed him. So Tuesday wasn't great. Wednesday was better. I mean, we were in the hospital all day Wednesday. And the diabetes educator from Northwell Health Endocrinology came in, Ellen, and Claire, the social worker. And we learned a lot about type 1 diabetes that day. I really got schooled. Now, I had gestational diabetes in 2010 when I was pregnant with my son Skylar. It went away after I gave birth. My father has adult onset diabetes, which is type 2. I've worked on diabetes campaigns. Type 1 diabetes is totally, totally different. We have to count the carbs for Ben. Now, yes, we have to watch sugar, but he kept going high for like the first. So anyway, we were released about 10:30 that night, and he gave himself his first insulin injection. There were tears. There was crying. It sucked. The next day, that Thursday, we were in diabetes education all day at the endocrinologist's office. That Friday, we were still reeling. We had to learn how to take care of our kid. Now, he has done all of his insulin from day one. I don't do that. I had to learn how to check his blood. Now, I messed it up a lot of times and pricked his fingers, and in the next upcoming months, you'll hear me talking about type 1 diabetes. You'll hear me review products. You'll hear me give you hints and tips and tricks, lunches. I have become, unfortunately, an expert. Not something I wanted to be, but I know a lot now. I know more than I need to. I know more than I wanted to. But the fact is, my kid's okay right now. Like, we were really high blood sugar. I thought we were going back to the hospital the first night we were home, but they don't want you going back to the hospital unless your kid is in DKA, which is Diabetic Ketoacidosis. So I call a number, the doctor calls me back. The nursing staff has been phenomenal. Thank you, Northwell Health Endocrinology, Pediatric Endocrinology. Thank you to Nurse Regina. Thank you to Nurse Diane. Thank you to Nurse Peggy, Dr. Balestris, Dr. Frank, our nutritionist Kimberly, diabetes educator Ellen. They've really been there for us, and that matters to me. My family's been wonderful. My friends have been terrific. And a lot of people have reached out privately to share friends that have similar, they've similar things going on with their kids, that their kids have type 1 diabetes. And I keep everything private, but it's been a lifeline. People have reached out to me, and you know what? It makes a huge difference. So while I thank you for the support, what I want you to do is, if you know somebody who's dealing with this, be supportive. Just listen. Or if you see something with your own child with excessive thirst, with excessive urination, with vomiting that they can't, with all these things together, sent him into diabetic ketoacidosis. It just wasn't one symptom, but I felt like it just happened so quickly from that Friday to that Monday. Things just went downhill really fast for us, and it was really scary. Probably the most scared I've ever been in my life. But the point is, we're managing. So, he has now the Dexcom monitor, which is a continuous blood sugar monitor, which he wears. That's another thing I'll tell you about in the upcoming months. We're hopefully getting an insulin pump soon. We go for training in a few weeks. We will be walking in the type 1 diabetes walks. Fortunately, they keep falling on days we have Hebrew school right now, but I'm sure we'll figure it out. But now, there's just a lot to do. Constantly. Now, the thing is, we were battling highs for like the first 5 weeks. Now we're battling lows. Sometimes blood sugar gets very low, and thank God the Dexcom will warn me, and then I have to check his blood sugar and see if the Dexcom's right, and half the time it's right. Like last night, it warned me he was 57. So I checked him, and he was actually 67. But we had been giving him a snack at night, and last night I forgot. So I woke him up, and I made the kid have a snack. I carry juice in my purse now. We've just learned things have changed. So thank you so much for watching. And I want you to hit like on this video and subscribe. I talk about a lot of things. Type 1 diabetes is only one of them. But if you have a child with type 1 diabetes, believe me, I need your support too. And if you have anybody that's newly diagnosed, you want to send them over to the Mama Maven blog, I would appreciate it. Thanks, and thanks for watching.